Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. We are live. Welcome to Startup Coffee. We're going to wait a few minutes for people to jump in here. So excited to be back. Good morning, and welcome. You're back with Startup Coffee. Get started in 1 minute. Happy Wednesday, folks. I hope you had a great Fat Tuesday and you have all the coffee. So I am going to get started for the sake of time for our guest today. My name is Kenesha Raymond. I'm the program director and access to capital here at Startup Tucson. And Startup Tucson, if you have not heard of us, have not been at coffee, one, where are you at? But two, we are a nonprofit that transforms the region's economy through entrepreneurship. So we offer education, mentorship, food programs. We have a sprint program that is for our creatives, makers. We have a ton of programs that are coming up, and I will share those with you right now. So our first program that's coming up is Startup Labs. That's on March 15th. It's from 3 to 5. So if you're thinking about starting a business or if you're tinkering or just trying to figure out where to start within your business or you want to scale your business, you're kind of stuck, Startup Labs is the best place to start. That is an on-ramp to all of our programs that we have here at Startup Tucson. So you're gonna want to go online and register at startuptucson.com, click programs, and then go down to workshops, and you will find the link there. Our next program, which we are highly highlighting today because applications have opened again for Food Forward. It was one of our biggest programs last year, and we received so many applications, but we're only able to bring in a small cohort. So now's the time for you to get back in there right now. Make sure you're registered and signed up for Food Forward. If you have a food business and you're looking to add a value added product, so maybe you have a food truck and you're looking to sell cookies because you're going to package them and then you want to sell them in stores, this is the program for you. It is a 10-week food accelerator, and it will take you from A to Z. So if you're thinking about it, go ahead and check it out on our website. If you have questions, shoot us an email at info@startuptucson.com or Tyler at startuptucson.com. We're also doing, on top of the Food Forward, we have the Food Accelerator I can't talk this morning, haven't had my coffee. We have our Food Accelerator, that's Recipes for Success, and that's our 14-week or 10-week program with a graduation and demo day. And then we have our free website. So if you have a product that you are now selling, but you don't have an e-commerce part of that, we saw in 2020 that there is a big need for that. You're going to want to get in touch with us. Again, go on our website. It's startuptucson.com/food-forward. And then we will be rolling out our virtual tour of gastronomy coming up soon. And there is more information on our website for that. So next up, we have our sprint. We have been working on this sprint program for a very long time, and it's been open for a while. And we have a ton of people that are in this 12-month program so far, but we still have space. So we want to make sure that we're opening it up to you all and making sure you're knowing about it. So we have the Launch Lab, which has our prototyping and prototyping products. We have a 3D printer, a laser cutter, a vinyl cutter. We have photography and media studio equipment, and we have mentors that will help you through this process. We have tech specialists that will help you either in the prototyping lab or help you in the media lab. In this, we also have an e-commerce masterclass and a prototyping masterclass. And then you have access to statewide mentorship. And that is very important because normally we only have our mentors in Tucson, but this time we're able to bring in people from all over that are able to help you grow and scale your business. So if you have not checked out the Sprint program and you are a creative and you're thinking about making a prototype or something, or you've already made this thing, but you really want to grow and scale your business, this is the program for you. And then we are doing a joint effort with the Forge. It is a St. Patty's Day mixer. Make sure you wear your green and join us at Borderlands from 3:30 p.m., I believe, until whoever leaves first. I don't know. We're just going to be there supporting the Forge, and we're going to be there to bring people together. And we're super excited to see you all in person because we have not seen you this year. Again, this is our first coffee back. We have not been back since the new year. So happy new year. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Black History Month. And welcome to Women's History Month because we are here for it. So we hope to see you guys around a little bit more throughout the year. We will be opening up our facility for things as the year goes on and COVID gets a little bit better and our numbers go down. So this brings me to introductions. Make sure you introduce yourself in the chat, whether you are watching this live or you're watching the replay of it. Make sure you introduce yourself. Let us know where you're joining from. Good morning, Christopher. So lovely to see you online. And I am so excited to welcome our guests today. So today, Startup Coffee is more focused on food businesses and how food is really transforming our economy, especially in the southern Arizona region, and how it's so important for us to really pour into our food businesses because those are the ones that really helped us through the pandemic. So we're talking to some amazing people that are in the foodie space. Some of them have a business, some of them are working in a business, some of them are educators in the food space, and I believe all three of them actually have a business. So I am going to welcome them on and let them introduce themselves. Welcome, Jackie. Welcome,
Hello.
Joel. And welcome, Bjorfin. Jackie, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Jackie Tran. I am a food writer and photographer, and I am also in the process of opening a food truck called Transfat's Truck. Hopefully, a little more than half a year before it's open.
Nice.
Thank you.
Perfect. And Bjorfin, please introduce yourself.
My name is Björk van Benediktsson. I run AZ Baking Company. We sell mesquite chocolate chip cookie mixes, and I'm also a mentor for Startup Tucson, and I'm a mentor at the University of Arizona's McGuire Center for Entrepreneurship as well. And I run an online business in the music space. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Perfect. Thank you. Joel, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jewel Ledoux. I'm the Academic Director of Hospitality Leadership at Pima Community College. So I run the hotel restaurant management, culinary arts, and therapeutic massage programs. So yes, it is an awful job to do, but somebody's got to do it. And I also own my own business, which is it's an education and consulting business, where I'm providing all things education in the world of cannabis. So we're trying to remove and dispel some of the ignorance that a lot of us have behind cannabis and how to properly cook with cannabis products. So great to be here, you guys.
Perfect. I think I have a great panel. I'm super excited. It would be really great if Jackie was here cooking. You know, that would like make this whole thing great. But it's okay. We'll take the L for now. We'll bring him back later, and hopefully he'll cook once the food truck opens.
Oh, yes, once we got a kitchen up and running, you got it.
Perfect. Okay, let's jump into this. How do you guys all kind of get into? You all have different backgrounds. How did you get into the food business or in the food world? Feel free to open your mic.
Wow, I think it's really all I've ever done, you guys. I studied hospitality and tourism in college, and so this is where I've been stuck my entire career. But it's a thing that people think is, oh, it's just food. But I tell my students at the college all the time, there's two things that everybody has to do. We have to die and we have to eat. I take eating for 500, Alex. And so food is the one thing that's universal for everyone. And so to not look at it that way and to appreciate it that way, oh my gosh, we do such a disservice when we do that. And then for me, being able to represent on the board of directors for the City of Gastronomy, which Tucson is a city of gastronomy. And mind you, one of the only in the country, in the United States of America, there's only two cities of gastronomy. That's Tucson, who's been the first, and San Antonio, Texas. It's an incredible designation. So I don't know if any of you have heard of City of Gastronomy or really truly understand what it is and what we do, but we are pretty much, for in layman's terms, City of Food. Doesn't get any better than that, to be designated in the world as a city of gastronomy is a major deal when we're standing up against we're standing next to countries such as Brazil and Italy, China. We're everywhere. So for us to have that designation in Tucson, Arizona is amazing. It's amazing to be a part of in this food space.
Thank you. Jackie Bjorfin?
Yeah, I can go. How I got into it is I'm very bad at keeping my hobbies as purely hobbies, and I always end up sort of monetizing everything that I like doing, which is both a blessing and a curse at the same time. Um, I I love cooking. My first job at 13 years old was in a bakery, so it's kind of fun to come full circle and run the AZ Baking Company at this time. I got into it sort of by accident or sort of out of curiosity. The previous owner of AZ Baking Company was looking to move and he wanted to sell the business, so we took it over, and with the intent to sort of, it's curiosity driven, and also just, I like entrepreneurship first and foremost in a lot of sense. Being a mentor at the university and helping out at Startup Tucson, I really get to help with entrepreneurship and learning how to grow and run a food business is just a interesting additional skill set that I'm developing, trying to figure out, and trying to get into, trying to make the mistakes so that I can pay forward to other people later down the line. And so it's, sort of by accident I got into it. It's been an interesting journey in the last 7 months. But yeah, it's just I'm into the food scene in Tucson. It's very interesting to talk about what Tucson is and what it means, like echoing off of some of what Joel was saying about the city of gastronomy. We are, in my case, entrepreneurship. It's Tucson isn't necessarily like a tech city, like a tech business city, like San Francisco or whatever. From my music background, Tucson has a music scene. Don't get me wrong. There's some very great artists here, but it's not a music city like Nashville, Atlanta, LA, New York. But Tucson really is a food city, and that's the scene here, and that's probably one of the strongest scenes that we have. And it's fun to be a part of, those rock stars, the rock star food entrepreneurs trying out new things and trying to build their businesses and sort of cultivating the sort of local foodie flair that we have all over the place here.
All right, and I grew up without access to cable, so I was just watching PBS and your afternoon cooking shows, so like Julia Child, etc. And by the time I was in high school, I didn't even know how to fry an egg. I just had no experience in the kitchen really, so I just was a bookworm in regards with food stuff. I just didn't have the experience because my mom just took over everything at that point and didn't really let me do that until later. So then afterwards, I was dreaming of being a restaurateur, and then I figured that I hated accounting and just dealing with the business math side of it. So then I switched to becoming a wannabe Anthony Bourdain and working in food media instead. So throughout the years, I've been doing that, and then pandemic came. I'm just like, YOLO. I'll regret not going after that childhood dream of starting my own business within the food space. So now I am trying to juggle it all together, and we'll see how long before I burn out.
I love that. I think you guys all came from different avenues coming back to food. And then being in the city of gastronomy, where like food is the biggest thing, and you kind of want to try all the food in Tucson, it is a blessing and a curse. And so we're here. We made it through the pandemic, and we're trying to rebuild the foodie scene. And I've seen a ton of different restaurants pop up. What is it that we have here in Tucson that makes food businesses so important for the growth of what we have in the economy?
I think a big part of it is we have a generous amount of curiosity and community as a city. Sometimes bigger cities don't, or they're a little bit more competitive, and I don't just mean because it's a larger population, but I mean they kind of care more about their own business. They don't really look out for each other the same way that we do in Tucson. And with resources like we have that food entrepreneurship workshop coming up, and just people here, just even though I've hardly talked to the three of you here, I feel like if I had questions within your spaces that you would be able to happily answer me and not try to keep that as proprietary information. So it's like, yeah, that community and food culture really goes a long way here.
Yeah, I think, I think a lot of it has to do just with, the sort of it's probably maybe easier to experiment and start stuff and just see what sticks here. Uh, you know, compared to an LA or something like that. There's obviously a lower cost of living, so you can maybe you're maybe able to take a little more risk when it comes to seeing if your food idea works. And there are lots of resources for finding for supporting entrepreneurs. Obviously, Startup Tucson is one. There's a lot of things that food entrepreneurs in general can reach out to organizations. They can reach out to get help. And I think also just spotlighting and making sure that everybody that is a food entrepreneur is aware of it. Like I work out at Cook Tucson, and there's a lot of food entrepreneurs there. Just in the last month, I've had a lot of conversations with the people that are making stuff there, and they all talk about sort of they all think that their weakness is the business side. They're great at making the food. They're great at making the stuff, being the creative craft artisan person, but it's the admin and the accounting and the business stuff that sort of maybe goes above their heads. And that's kind of why I'm excited to be a part of it. Obviously to grow my company, but also to help share my knowledge of entrepreneurship and business in general, so that can flourish and can grow. So that those experiments actually pan out, and then don't, if they want to take a risk and experiment and test something out, that they actually do it in a calculated way so that it has a higher likelihood of success.
I actually agree with both gentlemen. And so I'm going to come from the educational side, right? One of the things that I love, 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 and I try to be very vocal about it to the community in Tucson is that, guys, we have a blank canvas. And you just said it. We're not California. We're not one of those bigger cities where we're fighting. We have to change our perspective. And these are the things I know my students are like, oh my gosh, Jewel, we get it. No, you don't, because if you got it, we would be a little farther. But we have to change our perspective in the terms that we have so much opportunity, like they've said, to be creative, to get away with things that other cities would probably shy away from. We have an opportunity to do things such as go out and create business opportunities. So from the educational side, what I've done at the college is created a space that articulates right to what the two of you are saying. What we're doing is we've created a center of excellence that includes a brand new kitchen. So we'll have 3 kitchens that students can now use as their own business. We have a baking kitchen, a commercial kitchen that we do catering through, and then our smaller teaching kitchen. Of course, they're all teaching kitchens, but there's space. We've also recommissioned a full grill, and we're building a restaurant, a community front-facing restaurant at the Desert Vista campus. And what we're doing with this is we're making them no-concept restaurants so that we can create whatever type of food we want. So if one week we want to focus on Asian cuisine, one month we may want to focus on, Mexican cuisine, or we may want to do Caribbean. The students have an opportunity to come and literally run their own business at the college, and that's the entire point of giving them options and letting them know that, hey, this is a creative space. If you don't have anywhere else to try it and fail, Tucson would be the one place that you should be doing stuff like that. So just thinking differently and changing the perspective and going, we have opportunities to really, really do things in a space that we don't have to answer so much to. And I just say, look at it as a blank canvas. Paint the picture that we want it to be, as opposed to trying to fill in the little gaps that we think are there.
Thank you. Going off of that, we talked about some of the barriers of people not knowing the business side of things, but knowing how to make the thing. And as creatives, we get very much in our own way. We know how to make the thing. It's great and it's lovely, but what are the other barriers you have seen for people that are trying to get in the food business?
The from the business side, and I'm certain that you guys have seen this, is we've had to go back, especially through the pandemic, and we've had to really truly reevaluate our pay structures, our benefit structures, our work life balance structures. So the fact that we have partners throughout the entire city of Tucson in the restaurant and hotel space. I've had many meetings where they've all had to say, we've never been made to increase our salaries to the norm because they used to they used to pay a lot less in the restaurant world. But now we're finding that we've got restaurants that are giving higher wages as well as benefits, where those that know the food space, if you're not full time, if you're not a permanent role, you're not going to get benefits. And so between higher salaries and benefits, those are the two things that have been the two biggest barriers. And I think we finally started to see that without changing those, at least the businesses looking at and evaluating, well, what is it that the employees are really saying? They're saying they're burned out. They're saying, you want me to work 90 hours a week for $12.50. And I'm just throwing out a number. It's not really 1250, but it's a lot lower in our industry than in some industries. And that has been a major barrier. Even for me to send my students to do an internship, the students are going, I can't afford to take that small of a pay. So that's one of the biggest barriers we've seen is the benefits and the pay.
I think there's from sort of the food producer side, the small artisan, I think there's a sort of a gap between, you can easily go to a farmer's market, you can get a cottage license, you can make something simple, you can test out your idea at a farmer's market or some small market. But I think once you want to get past that and maybe into stores or things of that nature, I think there's a gap between the farmer market artisan and the capital invested food company that's growing and scaling. There's like this, there's a chasm there that's kind of hard to jump through, and it would be nice to have a bridge, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not quite far along in my business to encounter a good amount of these issues. I'm pretty terrified at the moment, but especially when it comes to hiring in a few months, because I can't worry about that until I actually have a set opening date. So that's going to be challenging. Of course, pandemic, supply chain, that's kind of almost a played out term at this point, but just with how many layers it affects everything, like, just because White Claw sold so many now, there's, aluminum can shortage for everything, and that costs everything in that realm costs more money. And just a piece of equipment is going to cost 3 times as much as it used to, and we're talking in the thousands of dollars here. So that's not a minor magnitude by any means. So I'm just figuring it all out and chewing along in the meantime.
Yeah.
I love it.
And
Go ahead.
real quick to your to your point, finding the bridge. So I actually, as I mentioned, I sit on the board of directors for the City of Gastronomy. So on that board, I have now just become the chair of the social justice committee, and that's exactly what you're saying is exactly what we're trying to listen to our community members, our food service members, and trying to spearhead. So one of the things that I'm looking at is getting that bridge built and created with working with people like you. So and Jackie, you too, I need to talk to you about some stuff as well, but finding that bridge in the social justice community, in this social justice committee is going to be critical, because what is happening is we've got to even get out of the restaurants, right? And we've got to get to our farmers and our ranchers that are out here that are going, hey, but what about us? And we have to remember that we've got some amazing locally grown foods that we have here that are native to our climate and to our environment. And we're pushing them to the side, and I'm going, no, we have to bring them back in. And that's where some of that bridge that you're talking about will happen, is through this committee. We've been tasked with, and we're holding ourselves accountable for providing that bridge space and figuring out how do we take, San Javier and some of our other ranchers and farmers and really put some time, effort, and resources and support behind them, because the more we do that with them, the better that bridge to the producers and to the restaurants, and that's what we are missing. So that's a big piece. I would love to invite you to that committee if possible. No pressure though.
Yeah, speaking about the supply chain things too, is like it's been very interesting as you grow. We've run into some supply chain issues in the past, but because because our resources or the ingredients in our products are actually mostly local, it's all grown in and around Tucson. So we have some pretty good suppliers here and some pretty good connections here. So that's been sort of solidified, but that, losing a supplier is a huge issue. So it's actually kind of good to have it local so that it has less of an external influence in that sense. But one thing is also like when you buy things from outside of Tucson, you have to factor in just giant delivery costs are often very, very high, especially if you're buying like ingredients in bulk. The stuff's heavy, and then also just lag times. We are in the process of updating our bags, so we've been buying copper bags and then stickering every single bag. I've stickered probably close to 2,000 bags now, and we are updating it to digitally printed pouches so that we are reducing some of those costs and some of that labor. But the lag time of getting those bags printed can be like 12 to 14 weeks. So you have to like factor that into, do you need a stopgap measure in order to wait if you get a huge demand of product in the meantime? So a lot of sort of, supply chain logistics is definitely something that you have to become an expert in when you're doing these sorts of things.
Which brings me to people who are starting and they've been doing this as a mom and pop shop for so long and maybe only doing pop-up markets. How do they transition from being that mom and pop shop to something bigger?
I would say try to get, so I guess, are you saying before a farmer's market? They're just, or
So
I guess,
I think most people start at farmers markets and pop-ups. And
yeah.
so they're now trying to figure out how to transition from that to have something that's sustainable, that will last, and kind of support their family.
Right. I would, we have had a really good success with wholesale accounts. So getting into smaller grocery stores and chain and gift shops and sort of local specialty stores. I find that that's sort of the next step before the supermarket and the big chains, because once you get there, that's a whole different issue. Oh, Kenisha's internet went out, but I'll continue riffing on this. So that's a whole different thing, because once you get into the supermarket, it's negotiations with supermarkets, you're not actually talking to supermarkets. You're talking to food distributors like UNFI and KeHE, and that's a whole different ballgame where you kind of need some capital to get to, whereas the independent sort of hitting the pavement and getting accounts with local markets, like we're in Flora's Market Run and those sorts of smaller spaces, means that you're actually interacting with just the owner or whoever buys it, and some more of a closer relationship. And like we're in the food co-op, it's the same thing. It's just like me, I talk to Jacob and Jacob just orders from me, and that puts my product into the community. And having those wholesale accounts in smaller stores, even though your margins are lower, it's good because they'll reorder. You're not relying on selling to consumers and they're only buying one bag. You're selling in bulk. You can estimate a little more about what you're going to be selling each month. You can predict your sort of revenue, cash flow statements, those sorts of things. And then there's online sales, of course. Like we have a Shopify store, we sell direct to consumer. So you could do the online route of just advertising on, you could Instagram and Facebook, we advertise there just as for awareness of our brand. And then there are smaller marketplaces like Faire, FAIRE.com, and then Meet Mabel. I think this is the other marketplace, and that's sort of the marketplace where unique food entrepreneurs and smaller stores meet and where they can find products that aren't necessarily at the big unified distribution level and aren't necessarily on Amazon either, and things like that. Obviously, Amazon is an option. You could go the sort of consumer packaged goods route there and have it be either fulfilled by Amazon or fulfilled by you and be listed on Amazon. But that brings up the conversation of Amazon, and there's some stigma there in certain circles. So I won't go there at the moment, but it is always an option.
And on not the flip side, but to kind of add to that, and Jackie, you will start to find this because you have a food truck. It just comes down to creativity. It sounds so elementary, but I can't tell you guys how many of our students come in and we get gritty with the students. I talk to them because this is why I like working with adults and not children, because you can talk to them like adults. And I say to them, well, what is it that you want to do? And 50% of our students say, oh, I want to open my own restaurant. Well, what does that mean, opening your own restaurant? You have to get creative. It doesn't always mean, because you want to run a restaurant, that you have to actually own one or open one or put one in a physically set up space. There's food trucks, and like you just said, there's all types of creative options that you can do, whether you find a niche. And people forget that the niche markets are so huge. We forget we live in Tucson, and in Tucson, one of the things that we've got to remember is this is a health city, right? It's a very health conscious city for many different reasons. We've got a lot of our wiser community that they're here, they're retiring, and they have issues and things that they're looking for ways to relieve ailments and pains as we're aging. They're looking for ways. We've got a lot of military presence here. So what does a military presence bring? It brings a lot of veterans. What comes with veterans? I've got 3 siblings that are all veterans and that all come with some really tremendous issues that need support physically, right? So coming up and thinking about and not being afraid to say, you know what, let me step outside of that typical restaurant and see what is the true need. What is the community really needing here? And we keep skipping over the fact that the health side of things, whether it's you pop up a food truck where you can travel to those very communities where they will actually spend money. For example, in the community that I live in, at least once or twice a month, we have food truck Thursdays and Fridays. And so those that are smart, Jackie, get you over there too, bring your food truck, but they come to the neighborhood and we love it because guess what? We don't have to go anywhere. The food is right there. So just thinking about different creative ways, and it's not even really creative. It's like going back to the basics, and because we keep trying to skip ahead to the more all the more intricate stuff. And I'm going, if you just go back to the basics, people love the basics. They love it. And you will find so much success if you master the basics.
Jackie, I want to talk about your food truck.
Okay.
Tell us about how this got started. What are the barriers you've seen? Why a food truck and not a restaurant? Because I know you were doing pop-ups at a restaurant for a while.
So the most obvious answer for food truck would be expense, much less overhead, and that usually comes to it. Mobility helps, but in my particular situation, I have an investor for the food truck, so they essentially, I can't say where it's going to be most of the time quite yet. We still have to finalize some things on that side, but essentially they're investing in the food truck, so I am a draw over to their property essentially. And with the start of pandemic, I that definitely affected the food media world. So in regards with the company I was working for, Tucson Foodie, a lot of the revenue was through food advertising, and advertising is something that a bunch of restaurants just had to cut out of their budget. So I wasn't really working for them anymore, and I had to figure out what other stuff I had available to me at the time. And I was just thinking back to my childhood bucket list of things I wanted to do. So I made a little social media post about, again, to reiterate YOLO in this professional talk we're having. I had that state of mind, and I said, all right, YOLO, I need to just get this going. I just wrote a few little fun restaurant themed ideas of what I wanted. And somebody commented on the post with, hey, Jackie, I know a person who would definitely invest in the food truck for you if you want to go that route. So I entertained the fact. I just had meetings with them, talked about the logistics of that to see how that would work. And they seemed pretty down. And at that point, I went through some of the logistical sides, got myself the LLC, and planned out the menu, this and that, and just have been going through. It took a little bit more than a year just to actually secure the food truck or get that legal side finalized with the investor, and then have an actual food truck on my hands. I think a little less than 2 weeks ago, finally, to where the title is over with the investor now. So now we're building that out, having the equipment sorted out, with during mid last year, because with stuff taking longer than expected, it's not so much any physical process that takes a long time. It's more so, oh, I need to get this person to be in town in order to sign this or to start this process of getting this thing moving, or this person has COVID now, so we have to wait a couple of months, or whoever. So it just so many different people involved that just exponentially increases the time needed for everything. So in that past time, I was working at a local restaurant here called El Torero. It's a Mexican restaurant, but they have a weekly specials menu that they change often. And what I did there, I worked as a line cook to cover their needs, but I also had my own section on their pop up menu. So I could practice my food and just kind of figure out what would end up working for my menu. So that's a very unorthodox method, but ended up being a good way for me to practice. Like, oh, okay, these particular dumplings will just take too long to cook to order. So having to expedite or pre or par cook certain things in order to get that process feasible. So that was a method that I used to kind of grow along that means. But yeah, right now there's just so much left I need to do, and it's scary and overwhelming. I want to curl up in a little ball in the corner, but I am comfortable and confident with the resources and friends and pals and communities we have here. So every little thing is gonna be all right.
Yeah, just one thing at a time,
hmm
bird by bird.
Yeah, if you're not scared, then what are you doing? Like, do it scared. Just
Yeah.
jump all in scared.
Mhm.
Okay, so that brings me back to Food Forward Recipes for Success. Farmersonly.com is what I call it. Don't tell nobody. Even though it's like live, don't tell nobody. Bjorfin actually came through Food Forward or Farmers Only last year. Tell us more about that process and how other people, why they should join and what you took from it.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was really valuable, educational, and fun in general. It was You learn everything from kind of start to finish. The first parts were very sort of fundamentals of entrepreneurship, customer ideation, discovery, things to keep in mind when building a business, setting stuff up, and things of that nature, which I was familiar with, but it's always good to have a beginner's mind and get a refresher on things that you might need to do differently this time around and things like that. Like when we took over the AZ Baking Company, we started it kind of from scratch from like the business organizational side. So we did a new LLC, new bank account, new everything, all that sort of stuff. So we were doing things again for the first time or from the ground up in that sense, even though we had some assets from the company. But it was, so if you are, well, I kind of almost, unless you are like, completely established, then maybe that's not for you. But even if you are a little bit along, if you are in a couple of stores, or if you're consistently doing well at farmers markets, it's still something that you would benefit from, not only from just like the general business and entrepreneurship education, but at the end of the class, there were panels from some cool people, established food organizations, both other restaurants and food entrepreneurs, as well as grocery stores and suppliers and the Tucson City of Gastronomy, and Jonathan was there and things like that. But then at the end, that's when everything came together, and you could really see the food of our labor, so to speak, and because there's a big showcase, and it's basically kind of like a small trade show that was at the Startup Tucson offices, and everybody got a booth. Everybody put out their offerings, whether they were doing my cookies, there were mesquite pancakes, there was tea from Tucson Tea. Tim made some pizza for everyone. There's charcuterie boards. There's a very diverse selection of different food entrepreneurs in the cohort, which made that event really fun, and everybody showed up with their A game, and it made for a really cool event at the end. I remember Jackie was there. We talked, so he can echo maybe some of it from the attendee perspective. But I, overall, I would recommend it if you are in the food space, if you want to grow your food business, or if you want a better foundation in the food entrepreneurial world.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing for me to see as a perspective was how varied the experience level was with the participants, because you had people with elaborate graphics and displays with their product, and then the person who ended up winning probably had the least experience because it was a literal child with his was it grandma that was assisting him, and whatever other family members with his horchata product. But
right.
People were able to recognize his potential in that, and also understanding the effect and influence of the resources available to him and how much of a difference that would make. So I think everybody had a pretty good time, and again, it's just that community, everyone supporting each other. We two students like to see each other succeed, and it's beautiful.
Definitely.
Well, we're hoping to have Jewel on, part of Food Forward this year, at least be a guest speaker for us. With all of your knowledge and background, you have to come out. So we're going to wrap this up, and I have one last question for you guys. What is that one simple thing that you can give to a food entrepreneur in this space that is starting out? It can be inspiration, it could be a word, it could be a song, whatever it is that they need to do or be on the road for. What is that as they're going through the struggles of baking and cooking and starting this food business?
Don't be afraid to fail. People, and Jackie, I think it's interesting because you even said it, how you were scared. Like Kanisha said, if you're not scared, then you shouldn't be doing it. It's that simple. There's my one thing. If you're not scared, then it's not for you.
Yeah.
I kind of think of that like how you have friends who think would be great parents, but they just don't want kids. They're terrified. But then, they would be the best parents. It's kind of the same thing with your business too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just being unafraid to fail and being creative and not worrying about what everyone else says, because what happens is I see it every single day with student after student after student. They get discouraged by one thing or by someone else's experience. And so what I would leave anyone who's trying to grow in a space like this is don't be afraid to it might not work out. That dinner may not work or that menu may not work. So try a different menu. It's not the end of the world. If that restaurant concept doesn't work, so try a different concept. Never give up, because at the end of the day, that is why we are a creative city through UNESCO. That's the key word, is creative. Creative city is what we are. So don't be afraid to create and understand that you have resources. There's a lot of us here that would be happy to be transparent with you and would be happy to support and try what you have going on. Jackie, I can't wait to get a load of your food truck, right? I can't wait to support that and be able to share feedback with either how well it is or, hey, love this, but maybe think about that. Like, that's what we should be doing. But so many of us get afraid we get afraid and we get scared by the feedback. That's the best part, is the feedback. So don't be afraid to try it again, and you might have to try it again and again.
Yeah, I would say it's in a slightly different vein, but about fear. Don't be afraid of marketing and sales. Marketing is just telling your story. There's plenty of stuff you can talk about when it comes to your food, the origin of it, your love of it, what you like about it. There's marketing is just storytelling with the goal of bringing awareness to your product. On the sales side, that gets a bad rap because people don't want to feel like they're being sleazy salespeople. But you're selling food, you're selling sustenance, you're selling something that people like. People like to eat. And not only do you you don't have to be pushy when you're selling at farmers markets, but ask for the sale. Ask if people want to buy what you have. And then on the flip side, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call stores and markets and make relationships that way, because guess what? There's lots of stores in Tucson that would be happy to, stock a unique product that has an audience, that has a customer base. So it's probably easier than you might think.
Yeah, and I guess my little input, I am not far along enough where I would think I'm that qualified, but I think essentially along the veins as well of just not being afraid, but it's more so you're more capable than you give yourself credit for. So just do it. And for your shortcomings, we have that community. And that's just something I'll just reemphasize in pretty much every bullet point that we've had so far. There's people who have the strengths to compensate for your weaknesses and they want to help. So don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you
Of
so much
course.
for your wisdom and talking about your food businesses. I will give you a quick story time for you. When I was, I don't even know, I think I was in high school. I set my whole kitchen on fire on Thanksgiving. I went on to run a successful cupcake business. So you can do it. Thanksgiving Day, the kitchen was on fire. You can ask my mom. It was a whole thing. The fire trucks came out, everything. It was a whole thing. So like, don't be afraid to try. Go back in, get it done, and continue going. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you are interested in joining Food Forward or learning more about it, startuptucson.com/food-forward. Or you can just go to startuptucson.com, click on farmers and food, and it'll get you to the program. Remember that applications do close March 7th. We have a hard deadline for that because we kick off the class on March 14th, and then we end with a party. And there is no party like a Startup Tucson party. If you do not know, you're going to want to know.
Correct.
So we hope that you guys will join us again. Make sure you come out on St. Patrick's Day for the kind of get together. It's a happy hour. Wear your green, wear your beads, because we're going to celebrate Mardi Gras and St. Patrick's Day. Do it all at once, because that's the only green I have. And remember, that is Women's History Month. So make sure that you are honoring women around town. I would like to say thank you to our wonderful CEO, Liz, because this year has been crazy, but she has held it down for us and kept us afloat. It is amazing to see the work that is going on here in town and how we can support. So you guys have a wonderful day, and we will see you next time. Bye.